One of the common questions that's usually asked by the atheists is regarding like the natural disasters. They say if God is merciful, then why are there so many natural disasters? Like, how would you approach that answer?
If God was not merciful, there could be a hell of a lot more natural disasters. You know, every city would have had a natural disaster. Everyone. As a joke, someone asked me, you know, how do we know that God is merciful? Maybe he's an evil God. I said, the very fact that Richard Dawkins is still alive talking today shows that he's a merciful God, right? Because he could strike him down, but the reason that he doesn't do that is because he lets him have a bit more time. Maybe he'll change his mind, right? But on a serious note, on a more philosophical note, there is an assumption there, and that is that there is no good reason for God to allow suffering in the universe, or in the world. There's no reason for God to allow that to happen. And what we also have to understand is also that maybe natural disasters is a consequence of a physical world. It may be physically impossible to create a world, an earth that, as we know, for example, mountains are necessary, and tectonic plates are necessary for the ecosystem, because we wouldn't have a flat land, for example. Anyone studying geology here? No? Oh, great! I can make it up as much as I want. Just joking. Yes, apparently these are physical things that are needed for the world that we live in. They're actually necessary components. Now, if we're living in a physical world, and it so means that these are necessary conditions that come about, then the question is then, why did God put us in a world like this? Then, but the question here we could also ask is, how do you know there isn't a good reason for that? How do you know? It's ignorant. It's actually arguing. I'll give you an analogy. What's your name, brother?
Talal.
Taral.
Talal.
Taral.
Yeah.
Ah, Talal. Good. Nice. Now, suppose now, is there a door there?
Yes.
There's a door, yeah. Okay. Suppose now I said there's something behind that door. I said there's something behind that door. And I said we're all going to witness what's behind that door. Yeah? But before you go in there, I give all of you an envelope. And there's some piece of information written on the envelope. Now Talal, he goes in there, and he opens the door and he sees a horrific sight. He sees a man sawing another man's foot. Sawing live. The man's screaming, bawling, he's going absolutely mad, blood is squirting everywhere, it's all over the place. He comes out mortified, saying there's a horrific monster of a man in there, right? Then I say to you, look, all of you have to see that reality as well. But I say to you, before you go there, you have to open, oh sorry, no. You go there, you see exactly what the Talal sees, but then I say to you, and you're also mortified, you have the same emotional state, then I say to you, open that envelope. And the envelope tells you that the man who is having his foot sawn off is someone suffering from gangrene. And the man sawing the foot is a doctor. And if he does not chop his foot off, or his foot off, he's going to die. Now, doesn't your emotional state change? Yes? No? Work with me here. Yes? Okay. But Talal is saying, you guys are crazy. There is a man sawing another man's foot. How can you think that this is any different? We should be mortified. We should be angry. Now, God's knowledge is something that you do not have. And that is that envelope, that information that you do not have. So God knows something that you do not. Right? And there's an insightful verse in the Quran when God wanted to bring man onto the earth. And the angels were fulfilling God's duties. And as they do, automatically, they don't have free will, they just simply do God's command. And when they're about to, they were a bit perplexed. They were like, okay, you know, we want to bring human beings, but there's going to be bloodshed. So they went up to Allah, not to challenge Allah, they wanted to know His wisdom, His hikmah behind this request. And what was Allah's response? I know what you do not know. Right? Allah knows, God knows what you do not know. Now, to argue that, well, why is there evil and suffering in the world, is to completely argue in ignorance. The only way that you can actually deduce that there was no good reason to allow us to be there, would you actually have to have God's infinite power, God's infinite knowledge, and that is impossible. And also, what's important as well is that people that do suffer in natural disasters, God infinitely compensates them. So what God has, say for example, we know in the Islamic tradition that if someone dies from cancer, they receive the reward of martyrdom. It becomes a shaheed, right? So God actually infinitely compensates that person for having that illness. What we can say is that yes, you may be disadvantaged in this world, but God will balance it out in the next world. So from a limited framework, it seems like, oh, this is really unfair. But when we have a broad framework, then those scales are balanced.
So do Muslims believe that even the extreme ones that do believe themselves go to heaven?
Do Muslims believe that?
Yeah. Because surely they're not real Muslims if they're doing things like that.
I mean, no, Muslims don't believe that. We don't believe that they're going to heaven. We don't believe that act warrants the ticket, first class ticket to heaven. No, we don't do that. Because I gave a lecture on this. You're talking about these individuals that are engaged in jihad, right? And you can watch it. It's on YouTube. I speak about this because the whole point of jihad is to establish justice and peace. Now, if you use methods that are contrary to those virtues, then what you're doing is not jihad. It's something else. Whatever it is, it's something else completely different. Jihad, by the definition of jihad, must be that it's congruent with the virtues of justice and peace, even the vehicle itself. Yes?
How can they determine themselves as Muslim when they're going so far from what it is to be Muslim? I don't understand how they can arrive at those conclusions from what's clearly the complete opposite of what it is to be Muslim.
Because people believe lots of silly things. People think they're Napoleon and Michael Jackson, and some people believe that Elvis is still alive. So what people claim is two different. There's a difference between what people claim and what people can back it up. You see. For example, suicide is actually a major sin in Islam. A major sin in Islam. And there is no evidence within Islam to argue for blowing yourself up.
So what I'm saying is, why do they do it then if they're so convinced that it's the right thing to do? Like, what gives them that? They're so involved in a religion, yet they still do that. I don't understand where it goes wrong.
It goes wrong because people become angry. When people are angry and enraged, their judgment is clouded, and it's basically like this. They think they're killing my people. So I'm going to do as much as I can to stop them doing it. And what happens is, because they're enraged and they're angry, is they forget to hold on to the principles. Look, did you know that the leading suicide bombers in the world are not Muslim? You know who they are? Tamil Tigers. Communist, anti-religious. Tamil Tigers. So suicide bombing is not a Muslim phenomenon. It's not a Muslim phenomenon. It's a phenomenon. There's a good book it's called by Robert Papp. It's called Dying to Win. And he says that the driving force behind suicide bombing is not religion. It's what? Well, it's not religion, and it's definitely not Islam. You know what it is? It's to repel foreign forces, democratic foreign forces, from what they consider to be their homeland. That's a driving force. 95% of suicide bombing is a strategy to repel occupied land. And the leading people on this are not Muslims. Now, we'd like to show credit for a lot of things, but not this one. Yes.
Yeah, I've got a question that is slightly related to the topic, but not really on the topic.
That's fine.
I mean, we know, for example, in Islam that there are 99 attributes of Allah, God, and incidentally, none of them is infinite. Now, the concept of infinity is a concept. You know that it's a concept, and that's why, for example, creation, people who advocate for creation, they stand on the fact that infinity is a concept. Now, sometimes we Muslims talk about infinite attributes of Allah, for example, of mercy and so on. I mean, how do we reconcile between these two, the fact that infinity is a concept and one of the attributes of Allah has to do with infinity, just to say that they are not finite?
Okay.
Adam, do you understand this question?
I don't understand the. Okay, are you saying
Can you
that?
clarify your question?
Are you saying that infinity is just a concept?
Yeah.
Well, infinity is a concept, but it can also be a reality. What can't be true is an actual infinite. But an infinite that goes on forever is fine. But it can't have an with no origin. Is a problem. But what you have to understand as well that Allah is not infinitely merciful, He is most merciful. And yes, He is merciful, but He is also just. But what Allah says is that His mercy is greater than His wrath. He's a merciful God. One could say, why doesn't He just show mercy to everyone and be done with it? But then He would not be a just. It would actually, if you showed mercy to every single body, and they did not pay for their crimes, then He would be an unjust God. But Allah is also just as well. So what we have is a perfect moral being that governs our affairs. Does that answer your question? No. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
For example, if you take the space as
but God is not. God is
I
not,
know, but when you say Allahu Akbar in Islam, it means it's not. It doesn't mean Allah is great, but Allah is the greatest.
Yeah, Allah is the definition of greatness. He is the greatest.
He's the greatest also, because whenever you think of something, you say Allahu Akbar. It means He's greater than what you think of.
Yes, good.
That's what that means.
But that doesn't have to be infinite.
That leads to some sort of infinity if you talk about.
How does it lead to? Look, God is a necessary being. He's not. Why does it lead to an infinite? I don't see that. I don't see that. Look, for example,
because if you have something, you have an entity. It is either infinite or finite.
No. You can have a being that is necessary or contingent. It doesn't have to be infinite. You can have a necessary being that has no beginning. You can have a contingent being. You can have a contingent being that goes on forever, or you can have a contingent being that does not go on forever. So I think you're confusing Allah as an infinite being. He's not an infinite being. He's an eternal being, a necessary being.
You get some certain groups, like for example, who reject the idea of there being like a hellfire, for example.
Yes.
Basically, some of them, we've had our academic discussions, and they basically argue that if you have a just God, then how can a just God or a merciful God, they can't understand how can a God, merciful God, put people in hellfire for eternity? I'm just wondering, how do we, how do you basically address that?
It does. Okay, so there are a number of ways that we can answer that question. One could argue and say, if you say to them, okay, imagine if hell wasn't forever, it stopped, would that be just? Would you think they would say yes? But I think they have a problem with hell per se. I think the punishing God, I think they have a problem with that. But let's just say it does go on forever, right? Because the traditional understanding, it does go on forever. There is a fringe movement within the Islamic theology that said it stopped. Because the word is ambiguous, but let's go with the traditional understanding, right? That it goes on forever. Why is that still justified? I think it's justified because in our intuitions we make that distinction. We make a distinction that we can use for this argument. Why? If someone harms a plant, do we treat him differently if he harms a dog? We do, right? Yeah. There's a different being there, right? Do we treat him differently if he harms a dog and harms a human being? We do, don't we? Right. Now, when we insult God, for example, what we have is a being that is an infinite being, a necessary being. So so when we punish not because of the crime, but who we the crime is against, right? So in the same way, why can't we say that if God, and I'm using this in a colloquial sense, infinite, an infinite being, right, is what the being that's involved here is an infinite being, so why doesn't that translate in an infinite punishment? Yeah? Because what we see that this is intuitive. Look, for example, if someone stole, would it make sense to put him in prison for 100,000 years? No, there's a disproportionate punishment, right? The crime does not fit the punishment, right? But if he stole and we put him in prison for 1 year, right? We make that assessment and then that's kind of fair, right? So if a human being's the crime is against God, who is an infinite being, then why can it not translate of infinite punishment? So in that sense, and also, who is that person that commits that crime? Again, it's someone that is conscious, that is intentionally saying, God, I don't want to live by you, I don't care, I reject. Also, kafir, another understanding of kafir is ingratitude. And you're being ungrateful for what? You can only be ungrateful if you know you've got something, right? You can't be ungrateful to someone whether you're ungrateful. And you say, what? And I'll go, it doesn't matter. Right? You're ungrateful for what you know in your life. So it's someone that is, and very few people go be in that situation. People be in that camp. Again, Allah is most merciful. Yeah? And by the way, that kind of understanding, I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses are quite strange in that sense because they are actually seen as heretics by the Christian community. And that idea is actually an idea that's it's part of universalism, that no one will go to heaven. Hell.
Well, I was just going to say, the discussions I've had with them are just, they seem to think that obviously there's a paradise and then for everyone else you just like dissipate and just like stop existing.
That's what nihilism, that they just get destroyed, right?
Yeah.
They don't exist. But one could say this, that that's actually an immoral God. Why? Because those people don't get any punishment. That means they get away. Yes, the good get reward, but the evil aren't punished. Imagine you believed that, because that's the biggest problem, because when people believe that there's no afterlife and there's no hell, they say, well, I can do anything I want, right? So that actually does not foster a good moral being, and also that does not befit a moral being who is just. Yeah.
It's not from my own knowledge, really. In like the beginning of creation, obviously I've been told by my mum and whatnot, you wouldn't.
Your mum's right. Mum is always right.
But there are so many like different sources on the internet. I actually just wanted to know, with Adam and Eve, obviously I know why I'm here as a Muslim, and we know why we're here as a Muslim and what we've got to do to change Allah, but in the beginning, why were Adam and Eve actually properly sent here? Why were we decided to be going on the earth? Like, I know so many people that we were tricked by, Iblis as a snake and the fruit of the tree, but I just wanted to know as a clarification, like, what actually happened? Does that make sense? Because I just
You don't want to hear the Daily Mail version. When you say what actually happened, I don't quite understand. I mean, the situation is that Allah did create Adam and Eve. That's fine, that's fine. Allah created Adam and Eve, and that they disobeyed Allah, and they were sent to earth, and hence the rest is history, right? So what's the question exactly?
Is that literally what it is?
Yeah, that's the way it is.
The fact that it's disobeyed and then...
Yeah, but that was Allah's foreknowledge. Okay, look, before that even happened, Allah had all of the souls in His presence. We were in with Allah, in His presence, right? An audience of Allah. Our souls were already created. This world is just a temporary stop-off.
Just a visit.
Yeah, just a visit. All of that story of creation is just to get the ball rolling. Yeah, that's not the important thing. The important thing is that Allah had asked us, who is your Lord? And we all replied, you are our Lord. All of us did that, right? All of us in this room, we're all there. We're in that. But we can't remember that. And the way that we remember that is by using reason, our intuition, our fitra is linked to that reality, that world. And what we do is that when we hunger for transcendence, we link to that. Why do Muslims pray, by the way? To worship, right? But there's a more profound thing that's involved in prayer. The Prophet, peace be upon him, we know that the Miraj, that he went to the heavens, yeah? The Prophet, peace be upon him, said that the believer's prayer, his 5 times prayer, is his Miraj. So the reason that we pray is that we connect with that world, with Allah. You know when we say, you're in front of Allah, we don't not in the literal sense, in the metaphorical sense, but there's a real metaphysical truth there. We actually are ascending to the seventh heaven, right? Because our home, okay, how many are here foreign students? Okay. Do you miss your friends back home? Yes? Do you miss your mum? Do you miss your mum's cooking? Right? When you miss home, what do you do? What did you say, sister? Oh, you phone, right? Right? Our telephone is a prayer. We connect to Allah. That's what we do. What did E.T. keep saying? E.T. phone home, E.T. phone home, right? He misses home. For the believer, for the Muslim, he misses home. Our home is with Allah. Right? So the prayer is a means of connecting to Allah again. Right? We really underestimate the power of prayer. The prayer is not for God. The prayer is for you. You need the prayer because you need your God. Right? And that's what prayer is.
I've just got another hell question. If someone is
What the hell?
If someone is actually like sentenced to hell,
Yeah.
I've heard like some people say that like basically is this punishment temporary? Is it eternal? Because is it true that some people go to hell for a certain period and they eventually go to heaven? Or do they, if you're going to go to hell, you stay in hell and it's eternal and that's it?
Yeah, it's pretty much what we discussed before. There are some that say that no, there is a fringe movement historically that say no, it's not forever. It's a long time, but it's not forever. But the traditional view, the majority of the people, Muslims, believe that it is forever. But the question is who goes there forever? And what I explained that it's someone that intentionally knows, and this is the thing, this person knows that the punishment for his kufr, if you like, is eternal punishment. And he still accepts it.
So the case for like non-Muslims, would it be like non-Muslims that to say a Christian or a Jew?
Yeah. No. They're not non-Muslim. They're Ahl Kitab. There's different reality. Yeah. So, it's not, okay, right. The word that, okay, when we say non-Muslim, what do you mean by non-Muslim? There are different categories, right? Ahl Kitab are like the Christians and the Jews, people who follow the previous messengers, right? Allah will also judge them if they were aware that Prophet Muhammad was a messenger, and whether they rejected intentionally, Allah will judge them as well. But what if they didn't have access to the true image of Islam? Then what are they rejecting, right? Now, what you have to understand is the people that will go there forever are what Allah calls kafir. And that is someone who you might even a Muslim who has a Muslim name may be a kafir. You don't know what's in his heart, right? Someone who intentionally rejects Islam, who says, I know Islam is true, I don't care. Look, think of it like this. You have people who are about to die from cancer, and they still carry on smoking. And you say to them, look, you're going to die, you have cancer, you have to quit smoking. They say, no, I don't care. You have people that exist like this, right? The kafir is the same. He knows that there's a punishment after life. Look, I've heard people, an atheist, I debated an atheist called Dan Barker. And you know what he said to me? Well, he said to an audience. He said, when I meet God, if I meet him, I'll tell God to go to hell. Astaghfirullah. You know, when he said that, I actually was scared for him. And he said to me, Adam, look at you, you're upset. I said, I'm not upset, I'm just worried for you. I'm just worried for you because, look, let's look at it objectively. Even if you're an atheist, you're saying, if God exists and I meet God, I'm going to tell him to go to hell. Listen, folks, if I'm using now because I'm being diplomatic, if God is a reality and you meet your Lord, you will not even be able to stand in God's presence. You'll be trembling because of your life. You'll be worried about if you lived a good life, if you were generous, if you were kind. forget about saying to God, you go, A'udhu billah. You know, may Allah guide him, may Allah guide all of us.
Ameen.
So what's the point of life? Why do we have to go through this whole game, going to heaven and hell? Why doesn't God just send us all to heaven? Why does he care? Why does he make us do this?
Because because we want to see if we are rewarded heaven.
What's the point?
What do you mean?
Like what you were saying, what's the point of coming to this life, going through a test, and then in the end you're going to get rewarded, and then in the end you're going to go to hell?
Because how can he reward us and punish us if we don't live it out?
But why does he want us to play this game?
Well, it's not a game, so it's not nothing. No, actually, Allah has created us because He, out of His grace, because He's a giving God, He wants us to experience the afterlife of infinite happiness. However, in order to benefit from that, to be worthy of that, you have to be moral beings. In order to be moral beings, you need to live out a moral life.
So from what you said earlier, you said the only reason we're on earth is because Adam ate the fruit to disobey God.
No, I didn't. I didn't say that.
Did you
I
say
said that's a means, that's not the end. You're here because Allah has created souls that have to be worthy of a presence of God. The coming here because we sinned is just a mechanism. It's just a mechanism. It's a vehicle to follow out the motions. You see, someone said to me, why didn't God just create us? Why did He create us? Why did He just not create us? And I said that would be a selfish God. The very fact there is a possibility of creating beings having infinite happiness and enjoyment and not doing it would be a selfish being. It's not a very giving being. Imagine you're a millionaire and you don't give any of your money to anyone.
But he could even give to us by sending us all to heaven.
No, but how would that work?
As in, He creates us just to enjoy ourselves in heaven, without risking the...
But then you wouldn't be moral beings, you wouldn't be worthy beings. You can only be in the presence of God if you're a moral being. You can't be a moral being if you haven't acted out moral situations. Can you be a charitable... Guys, please. We're having a very interesting conversation. Can you be charitable if you've never given money? Really?
You don't have to give money to be charitable.
Oh, no, okay. All right. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Money's the wrong. Okay, if I can say, can you be brave if you've never been in a situation that requires braveness?
You still have the characteristics that make you brave.
How do you know
been tested and that.
How do you know that? How can you be patient if you've never been in this difficult situation? How do you know?
Why do you need to be good to go to heaven, or to be with God? That's what I'm wondering. You're saying that we need to be tested, we have to be virtuous to be with God.
Yes.
But why? God should be willing to accept us even if we are.
Well, even if you're a murderer, rapist, and Hitler.
Why not?
Well, you think that God, a good God, would be just and virtuous if He allowed Hitler, a Hitler-type character, to be in His presence.
Well,
I mean, I would see it as a weird God. That's not a God that I subscribe to. I think that would be a peculiar, very strange God to have indeed. I think that God is actually impossible to exist.
Let's say you put people away and they don't know anything about this world. You put them on an island, yeah? Would they know good from bad? Yeah, so that's the first question, basically. Like,
do they know good and bad?
Yeah.
Yes.
You take some children and you put them on an island, alright?
Yeah.
And it's not really a question, but it's quite like a argument that's quite famous on the internet about atheists and people who believe in God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea is that if there's a God, the worst case scenario for an atheist or someone who's a rejecter, a kafir, is go to hell. But if there is no God, the worst case scenario for like someone who has a religion is he's had a good life and nothing else is afterwards. So logically speaking, wouldn't it be that you have very little to lose if you were someone...
Is this supposed to be an argument for atheism?
No, against atheism, basically. Like,
oh, Pascal's wager.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're asking my opinion on it?
Yeah, and given that, like, wouldn't it be like logical to
Okay.
just...
Okay, so the first point is, if you're on a desert island, would these individuals know good and bad? Yes, in a general sense, they will know what good and bad is. Remember I said that God created us with a fitra, a certain state, our souls. And what's within our souls is that kind of ability to determine what's right and wrong. For example, ask anybody, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, atheist, agnostic, whatever, whatever it may be, you say to them, is torturing a child for fun always going to be evil? Yes? Please say yes. Things aren't that bad. But most people, those kind of general, kind of absolute kind of notions, they'll be able to work out. Like, for example, killing someone for no reason, because you don't like his face, or his haircut, pretty much everybody has that resource within them to know that that's wrong. But if you ask questions like this, is it wrong to switch off a life support machine when there is no activity in the brain? That's a very acute question. It's a very nuances in that. What is life? At what point is there? All of those questions can be answered. That is a very difficult. Not everyone's going to agree on. Well, why is that? Because sometimes that resource in us, we've lost the ability to work that out, and that's why we have revelation. Revelation enables us, that gives that framework of a moral framework that we can rely upon and help us with those kind of questions. So what the Quran is, what I call it, is it's moral technology that we don't have. Moral technology that gives us an insight in moral questions. Also, sometimes we have sociopaths who their moral notion becomes jaded, clouded. What we say about these people is that they're morally blind. They're morally blind. Just because some people can't see, it doesn't mean that there's nothing to see. It just means that those individuals can't see, right? The second point about Pascal's wager, I think it's interesting, but I don't think it's a very good argument against atheism. Because just because something is in your the argument is this, by the way, that the odds, it's a practical argument. The odds are stacked up against you. So if you don't believe in God and God exists, you're going to hell forever, right? If God doesn't exist, then nothing happens to the atheist, nothing happens to the one who believes in God. But the odds are on the favour of believing in God. So therefore, if you want to be practical, you should believe in God. Now, again, Voltaire said that this was like a childlike argument. It's not a persuasive argument. What I would say here is that just because something is beneficial, it doesn't mean it's true, right? But having said that, I will say this. I think if we use the argument like this, just because of the potentiality of an infinite punishment and an infinite enjoyment, we should consider the question of God. We should not ignore it. Just because of the potentiality of it, that we should consider it. So if you take it and place it somewhere else, it becomes a good argument.
I wanted to ask, perhaps the question you can answer a whole other talk. I wanted to ask you how did you find your purpose in life?
I don't know, but someone actually gave dawah to me. I was in university like you, 2 years ago. Long time ago. And someone gave me, spoke to me about Islam. They spoke to me about the existence of God. That God is not just a fantasy. It's actually true. We can actually, demonstrate God's existence. I couldn't believe it. I remember when I first went to a lecture, and I sat down and I literally walked out, my mouth open, like, man, that was mad. That I couldn't believe that someone articulated God, religion, Islam in a rational sense. And for the first time I actually saw making sense in that way, and that was the beginning for me. And that should be the beginning for all of us, if we're concerned about truth. We should all be concerned. Socrates said that if you follow where the evidence takes you, you should follow where the evidence takes you. And for me, the evidence pointed to Islam. I would be if if I rejected Islam, I would be lying to myself. And sometimes you've got to do something. Life is, a moral life is sometimes doing something against your own interest. Right? It's very easy for me not to be a Muslim. My life would have been so much easier. Trust me, I've lost a few jobs because I was Muslim. You know, before they found that one of my companies that I work for, my background's in management, and you know, they didn't know I was Muslim. I don't really look like overtly Muslim, and they thought I was and I wouldn't go to the pub with them and stuff like that, and alcohol and all that stuff. So they thought I was a recovering alcoholic and Jewish. Yes. So they thought that the reason I would avoid the pub because I could not face alcohol because I didn't start drinking anymore. And they actually, because obviously I pray 5 times a day, and I'd leave my desk, they actually thought I had a second job on the side. So I was moonlighting. So I remember my managing director calling me in the office and he was giving me his appraisal, and you know all the ticks and everything, and he said, Adam, just one last thing, you know, some of your colleagues have spoken to me, and I said, right, okay, what is this? Did I do my job right? He said, yeah, you know, you're always away from your desk. And I said, really? He goes, yeah, you know, 3 times a day, you're just not there. Where are you? And you always go to the bathroom just before. And I said to him, I'm Muslim, and he went, ah, right, okay. And he was a really cool guy. And he went, oh, right, okay, right, let's not talk about this again. And he was all right with it. But some jobs that I've been in, you know, they thought I was Jewish, and then when they found out I was Muslim, I actually got the sack. You know, I actually got my contract cancelled because I went to Chicago, and some of the head people there were, let's say, inclined to that kind of faith, and they obstructed my contract simply because I was a Muslim. Simply because, yeah, and many Muslims now. I conducted a survey, research for Islamophobia, and I interviewed many Muslims, you know, from very practicing, very overt Muslim to Muslims just have a Muslim name, and all of them have been mistreated at work. All of them have lost their jobs. One sister who doesn't even wear a headscarf was constantly, you know, she'd walk into work and someone would stop her and go, "Why do Muslims blow up things in the middle of an office, you know, open plan office?" And she'd be like, well, "Why would you ask me that question?" And they started spreading rumours about her, and it was terrible, really terrible. And you know, alhamdulillah, she's still Muslim, she's still strong in her deen. You know, it's terrible. We live in those desperate times. Don't know how I arrived at that topic, but yeah. Last one. Last one. See, this is me showing that I'm generous.
Yes,
generous. This is the situation.
Yes, very.
I'll make it quick. I just wanted to know, those people that die in Ramadan, like a month fasting and stuff,
yes.
I've heard that because all the gates of Jahannam are shut, that those who die in that period get sent straight to Jannah. But is that true, first and foremost? And secondly, what if those people had done really bad things?
The thing is, you have to be careful of taking these hadith that are supposed to be motivation for us too literally. Because there can never be a reality where Allah's justness nature is overturned, compromised. Yeah. Like for example, if you learn all the names of Allah, 99 names, that you go into Jannah. These are just forms of motivation, right? And we do get carried away with these things. You know? It's understanding to be motivational speech, if you like. Shall we end?